In Spanish, its name means the Meadows. You might know it as the entertainment capital of the world, Lost Wages, or simply Sin City. Of course, I'm talking about fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. On average, 42 million people visit Las Vegas every year, and I'm one of them. I love this city. The sights, the sounds, the shows, the people, the history. I want to share all of it with you. Taking you to the world-famous Vegas Strip and beyond, my name is Jeff, and this is the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. Hey there, and welcome to the best of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. Over the course of the last year or so, I've had the opportunity to talk gambling and gaming with some very cool guests and cover what I thought were some fun and interesting topics. We talked about everything from how to bet on sports to apps that help you keep track of table game limits to when skill becomes cheating and even superstitions as they relate to Las Vegas. As such, I thought it might be fun to take a trip back and listen to some of the highlights of those conversations. Enjoy. To start us off, from episode number 36, Sports Betting for Dummies, here's Minty Bets.
My first bet was a parlay, which is when you pick two teams in one ticket. So the risk is low, but the payout is higher. It was the Green Bay Packers and the Saints. And I remember both teams lost. I didn't do any research on them. I didn't even watch those games. I was just like, wow, I can put $20 to win like 60. That's cool. And I did it and I lost.
At the time, I'm sure it seemed like a really decent, investment, right?
Of course. Like when you see that you can only risk like $5, $10, $20 to get whatever, 40, 50, 60, it seems like a good investment. But that's how the sports books make money, is because a lot of people that walk in don't really know or think they know what they're doing, and they lose, which is great for the books.
Well, and again, I mean, for me, as I mentioned, when we were getting ready for this interview, I mentioned, I have zero knowledge in the world of sports betting. I mean, I have no knowledge in the world of table games, and I know even less about sports betting than I do about table games. I walk into a sports book. For me, it's just confusion.
Gibberish.
Yeah. It's gibberish. It's a bunch of numbers on a board. It starts looking like math to me.
Yeah, they throw in a couple colors to make it a little more attractive.
Red and green. It's like Christmas time. You see me. I'm the guy at the side of before getting into line on my phone, Googling how to bet on sports. I'm that guy. So, I wanted to bring you on because, sports betting is a topic I've had people ask me to cover on this podcast, and not knowing anything about it, I thought, I need to go to an expert, and lo and behold, here you are. So,
oh goodness, thank you.
let's start off by talking about, a few different things. First off, and again, this is just my knowledge from Googling. How do you read the money line? And I guess the first question I should ask before that is, what the hell is a money line?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to start from square one. Okay. Money line might be like the second thing I'm going to get into.
Okay.
So when you walk into the sports book, super intimidating. Let me tell you guys first that I don't like walking into the sports book. I get intimidated when there's a lot of people. And of course, it's a big open area. So when you're walking through, people are looking at you and judging you, or at least that's what I feel. And especially being like a woman going into a sports book, people are like, who's that?
Right.
So I don't like going to the sports book. So I totally understand when people are intimidated and afraid to ask questions. But here we go. I'm going to start with, when you walk into a sports book, the first thing you see is that colorful board with a bunch of numbers and a bunch of team names and games playing today. That's called the odds board. That's what you want to look at first. Next, you're going to see the teams that you want to bet on. Let's just use football, and let's just use the Patriots and the Rams as a good example, okay? Let's say they're playing today. The Patriots are going to be favored and the Rams are going to be the underdogs. So typically what you want to look for first is going to be the rotation number. The rotation number is just typically like a 3 to 5 digit number next to the team. And when you go up to the window, you're going to tell them the rotation number rather than, Patriots to win the game. It's just quicker for them to look up, especially when it's game day and there's a line behind you.
Gotcha.
So you're going to look up the rotation number. Let's just say it's like 901. To answer your question, money line is just them winning straight up. So you would say the rotation number, say it's 901 money line. That means you bet on the Patriots to win straight up. They don't have to win by a certain amount of points. They just can't lose, but they have to win. That's going to be the most common bet. Next, you have a spread. And like I said earlier, let's just say the Patriots were favored in this game. Let's say by 7 points, because that's like a normal number.
Okay.
If they're favored by 7 points, that's the spread. You need them to cover the spread, which means you need them to win by over 7 points in that game. If they win by less, like 3, 4, or 5 points, you lose your bet. The other side of that is going to be the Rams are going to be +7, which means they're underdogs and they're given 7 points. So that means they can lose, but no more by 7 points. So that gives you a little wiggle room. If you don't think the Rams are going to win, but you think it's going to be kind of a close game, that's a good bet to take.
Okay.
So yeah, money line is just winning straight up. And then the spread is just they have to win or lose by that amount of points.
There's times when I wish this was a video podcast, because if you could have seen the look on my face when you said, even if they win, but they don't win by enough points, you still lose. I just had this dejected look on my face, like what? But they won.
I know. Yeah, and that's what sucks is I've lost a lot of bets because they couldn't cover the spread or cover the amount of points that they're supposed to win. It sucks. So that's where you kind of get into a little more, I don't want to say intermediate, but intermediate betting is like, okay, I think they are going to win by a touchdown and an extra point. So that's kind of when like studying and stats comes in.
So can you bet just the money line, or do you have to bet the money line and the spread in this case?
Oh, you can totally bet just the money line. You can just bet the win, but know that typically the more favored team, you would have to put more money down to get money back. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yes.
Hence why you want to bet to cover the spread too, because if they cover the spread, then you're going to win more than if they just win.
Yeah. So typically when you bet on the spread, you're going to see a number behind the team name. And again, this is where visuals would really, really help, Jeff. But
it's theater. It's theater of the mind, Minty. It's theater of the mind.
Yeah. We're working on our imagination right now. So you're going to see a -110 behind the team name, and that's called the vig or the juice. That basically means -110 means that you have to put down $110 to win $100 back plus the 110 that you put in. And that 110, I mean, why isn't it 100 to win 100? Why is it I have to put down 110 to win 100? Well, that's the little tax that the sportsbook kind of takes to take your bet.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of where that money goes missing.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry if that was more confusing, but I tried my very best to use a simple.
No, that's, you know what? I already feel like I'm learning stuff. Kind of.
Okay, good.
So I guess, the next question you mentioned about the odds.
Mm-hmm.
Who determines the odds? And I'm sure there's the odds gods somewhere that are determining all these odds. Is the money line determined by the odds, or the odds determined by the money line, or the two not related at all? Am I just pulling stuff out of my butt? What's happening?
All these numbers are determined by the sports book, and they have these special algorithms that determine that. They go by past games, they go by injury report, they go by weather, they go by a ton of factors that we wouldn't even think of. And if they're not getting enough money on one side, they'll adjust those numbers to make it more appealing to us bettors, to go to the other side to kind of balance it out. So the sports books, will make money at the end of the day rather than losing money.
Well, because of course, as you and I both know, Las Vegas was not built on winners.
Right. Exactly.
Up next, from episode number 51, Cheating the Odds, From Vegas Aces, here's Heather Ferris.
So the first step when you're learning how to count cards is you learn the basic strategy. It's also good to know the house edge when you're learning how to count cards. The next step after you've done both of these is to learn a count system. So what count system do you want to use? There's a ton of count systems out there, but which ones do you use? Well, I'm going to give you 3 count systems, but the first thing you do is, what's the point of the count system? The point of the count system is to give the player enough information to determine 1, when to bet more, 2, when to deviate from basic strategy, and 3, when to take insurance. Now, depending on what you want to accomplish, you're going to use a different count system for each. So, which one do you want to choose? Well, first and most important thing is, what kind of game do you want to play? Are you going to be playing a single deck or a multi-deck game? Because that's going to determine one count system. The second thing you're going to determine is, what is the easiest count system for you? What can you learn? Some people are different. They can learn different count systems easier than others. But what count system is easier for you? Because a lot of them are pretty much, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them are pretty much the same. It's just a 0.1 deviation. Mm-hmm. So if one system is easier for you to learn than the other system, and there's only that 0.1 deviation, then learn the one that's easier for you. Because if it's easier for you, when you're in the casino and you're using it, it'll be easier for you, to get through that stressful period, because it is stressful when you're doing it.
Sure it is, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Now, both of these questions are far more important to what system to use. A lot of people say you have to use an advanced system. That's not necessarily the case. Simple is perfectly fine. The monetary difference between the advanced count and the simple count, unless they're playing like several hours a day, like 7 days a week, you're basically not going to see that in a lifetime of use. So you might as well just do the simpler, the better,
Okay.
So let's talk about the 3 different counts. The first one we're going to do is the high-low, and this is the most common one. And it's also the easiest one to learn. Now, what you're going to do is, every single time you see an ace or a 10, you're going to subtract 1. Okay? If you see a 7, 8, and 9, those are 0 value cards, and you're not going to do anything with the count. If you see a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, then all of these are +1 value, and you're going to add to the count. So if you see a 2, that's +1. If you see a 3, now you're at 2. If you see a 5, you're at 3. If you see an ace, you're back to 2. You see what I'm saying? So it's just adding and subtracting.
Okay.
Super easy, right?
Super easy.
Super easy. Okay. Now, that is the high-low. Just so you know, it's also called plus or minus, and it is usually used for most counting systems. Now, if you want to do just single deck, let's say you found a single deck and you want to do a counting system for just a single deck game, then what you would use is the High Opt 1. And the High Opt 1 count system was created by Lance Humble, and this is really good for the single deck. And how you do that is, all of the aces are grouped with the 0 crowd. So that way there's no chance of an ace busting a hard 16 or hurting a double down hand. So in that case, all of the 10s are valued as -1, so they are subtracted from the count. All of the aces, 2s, 7s, 8s, and 9s are 0 value, and all of the 3, 4, 5, and 6 are valued as +1. So you would add that to the count. And that helps with the single deck. So the single deck is the only deck you get the true count. Everything else is basically the running count, and I'll explain that here in just a few minutes.
Okay.
The last system that we're going to go over is the 10 count, and that was created by Edward Thorpe in his book Beat the Dealer. And this is basically what you use to take advantage of the insurance. So same thing, all of the 10s are -1, and everything else is 0. So what you're doing with the tens count is you're just keeping count of all of the tens. That way, when you have insurance, when the dealer has an ace up, you know the probability of whether there's a 10 underneath that ace or not, so you know whether to take insurance or not. And that's the whole reason why you're doing the 10 count. So depending on what weakness you want to take advantage of would depend on what count you would use. Any questions so far?
So going back to the legit counting, the +1, -1 stuff, that one. See, here's the problem that I would have. I'd need a freaking calculator to be keeping track of the +1, -1, +1, +3, -2, blah, 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 blah. No way. My tiny little brain could never make that happen.
Well, you think that, but here's the thing. We humans are remarkable creatures, and homework is amazing. Just saying.
Yeah.
Practicing at home is actually one of the ways that you do card counting. You can't just go on blackjack table and be like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to totally rule this place.
I'm going to clean this place out.
I'm going to clean this place out. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You have to spend hours of at-home practice actually practicing what you're going to do. So let's talk about that. What do you do to practice? What's your homework? You know, yeah, it's good to know you have homework, but what's your homework? So the first thing that you're going to do is identify card value. You're going to have a single deck in your hand, and you're going to go through the deck. You're not actually counting. You're just identifying the card value. So if you see a 3, that's +1. If you see a 7, that's 0. If you see a 10, that's -1. That's all you're doing. So every time you see one of those cards, you're assigning a value to it. And you have to get through the whole deck just assigning the value to it. You do this depending on the count you do. So if you do the +-, you would practice that way. If you wanted to do the 10 count, you would practice that way. But whatever it was, that's how you would practice it. After you have that skill down, stone cold, then you would start on the next homework assignment. And what that is now you want to keep a running count. So now you know what the value is. Now you're going to do the same thing and go through the deck, but this time you're actually going to do +1, -1, +2, +3, -1, which is 2, and then actually do the running count. Same thing. Sit at home. You're going to have to do this a million times, no doubt. It's okay. And then go through the deck and actually +-. Now, by the end of the deck, if you hit even or 0, 9 times out of 10, you're ready to move on. Okay, you know you're doing good and you're ready to move on. Now what I want you to do is I want you to do exactly the same thing, but instead of 1 card at a time, I want you to do 2 cards at a time. So I want you to count 2 cards at a time, okay? And I want you to practice that over and over and over again until you can hit even at the end of the deck 9 out of 10 times. So by the time you get to the end of the deck, if you're at 0, you know you did it right. I want you to do that 9 out of 10 times.
So it should always equal out to 0.
It should always equal out to 0. And that's how you know you did it right. If you're at +5 and you've hit the end of the deck and you probably didn't do it right. You probably shouldn't go to the casino and spend your money just yet.
You're not quite ready to knock off the Bellagio yet.
Not yet. Now, just so you know, a good card counter, they will count down a single deck in less than 20 seconds.
What? No.
Yeah.
No, they won't.
Yeah. 30 seconds is still good, but a professional card counter can do it in 20 seconds or less.
Well, there goes that career for me. From episode number 52, Superstitious Feeling, here's Stuart Vise.
When you play the slot machine, any slot machine, you play roulette, or any of the games that are purely chance, right, where you're not actually involved at all, and I would put, although, I mean, obviously for some games there are betting strategies, even if they're purely chance, like craps. I don't actually. I confess I don't understand craps, but I understand it involves dice. Right?
Yes, that much I know too. That's about as much as I know as well.
Okay, so there's nothing you can do to make the die roll, the way you want them to. That is the scientific fact. But here's the hedge on that, right? So superstition will not help you in those contexts, and yet they're very common. You pointed, just as an aside, you mentioned the people tapping the screens of the slot machines and so forth. The Bally people who make some of those slot machines, I don't know whether they've actually produced them yet, but they have patented a special kind of slot machine that would actually respond to those superstitious taps on the screen, that they would give some kind of a feedback in order to try to monopolize on that and encourage the people to continue doing it. The idea being that people who do that tapping, and if they're rewarded for it in some way, that they'll keep playing, they'll play more. So it's not, they're aware of this stuff. But there's nothing at a slot machine or a roulette table that will help you. Now, if you are actually engaged in a skilled activity, and here I think the better analogy is theater or sports, not so much the casino. But if you're engaged in a skilled activity, it seems logical. At least it's possible, right? There is a possibility that there would be a psychological benefit, that the superstition would give you, a feeling that you've done something else, that you've added to your circumstances, and that psychological feeling would lead to better performance, right? Would lead to better hitting on the ball field or batting or whatever. And so that seems logical to me. And a few studies have tried to show that. And I have to confess that the results have so far been mixed. I mean, that may be the fault of the scientists, that they haven't done the right kind of studies yet. But so far we can't say for sure that even that works. So it's still an unanswered question, I would say. There have been some positive studies and some negative studies. So we shall see. But there's no question, people are superstitious, right? And it's been going on for centuries. So something must support it. My guess is that it is the immediate feeling that you feel better doing it. And whether that leads to better performance is still, we're not sure about that.
The only superstition that I've come across for myself in a casino is that my wife can't be anywhere near me. She's got this pall of I don't know, bad luck and darkness that hangs around her in the casino. And one of these recent trips, we sat down at a machine and I put some cash in, and she was standing there watching me, and I was losing. And as she started walking away, right, I started winning again. She came back and I started losing again. So I don't know if that's superstition or if that's just bad luck or what that is.
I don't know. I mean, it's not a scientific test, so we'll have to see. The test would be to have her stand there, but in such a way that you can't see that she's there, and have her, go back. Here's the study I would design, right? Is that she's there, but you can't see her, right? And then have her move back and forth and see how your luck changes. I'll meet you in the casino and we'll set something up.
I don't know if I have enough money to do that scientific test, Stuart.
Oh, sorry about that. We'll have to get a grant or something.
And from episode number 54, Know the Limits, from Bet Mingo, here's Gabe Punsalan.
The idea was hatched because I found that there was a lack of knowledge on what's going on around you. And I understood that it would be a difficult problem to solve, but you have so many different actions happening. So tables can change, right? You can be at a table and it could go from $10 to $15 to $25 very quickly. But there are also times where tables at casinos that you wouldn't expect because people had a preconceived notion that that's the win, that's going to be expensive, don't even go there.
Right.
And surprisingly, their table's empty because everybody thought the same thing, and they have $10 tables. And so I said, how can we, as gamblers, have more information to make the experience more effective, make the ability to go to where we want to play more effective. And that's why I said I looked it up, and there was nothing out there like what I was thinking of. And so that's why I decided to start this project.
And I was playing around with the app a little bit, and I got to say, like, it's very cool, and it's very user friendly, and it's very organized and very well set up. And essentially, as I say, like, it allows people in more or less in real time to tell people, hey, the tables over here are great, or the tables are low. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest Las Vegas complaints right now, is that people, they don't know where those lower limit tables are, or those, or the higher limit tables for that matter. They don't know where those are. And this is a way for people to actually get that information in real time, isn't it?
Correct. And, everybody has kind of an idea where, all right, if I want to play or find a $5, $10 game, most likely you would go down to Fremont Street, or you would go here, you'd go there off the strip. If I was here on this particular weekend, all right, sure. There's you can assume pretty accurately that these certain casinos will be more expensive or whatnot, but it's not necessarily always true. And I think having that information, and really just having any little bit of extra information, can help dictate where you go. As far as, say you step out of your hotel on the strip, you have 6 hotels around you. Uh-huh. And so you go, all right, which hotel should we go to? At this point, it could be a crapshoot. But with BetMingo, you may notice that, this casino, as of 30 minutes ago, had this game at this valuation with these rules, versus the other 4 or 5 didn't even have it. So at least that whittles down the direction you're going to go and can get you to playing your favorite game faster.
And other than just the table limits and such, is there other info that you collect as far as how hot a table is, or how much fun people are having, or things like that?
So currently, when developing an app, we wanted to drill down on the main functionality of what we're trying to accomplish. Since there was nothing of an app, anything like this, we had to really focus on, all right, what are the key performance metrics, or what is the value we're trying to provide visitors to Las Vegas? So currently, we're focused on table minimums, a generalized crowd score. And when we say generalized, there's only 3 tabs. It's either going to be, I think, empty. There's going to be a crowd score of light, and then a crowd score of crowded. And we don't really have that defined in the app, but people can just kind of put, like, all right, if the table's dead, it's empty. If it's light, we're looking at, is it half full? Crowded, is it 3/4 or all the way full? And then we also provide rules. So, for example, craps is my favorite game. We'll put the odds, any kind of bonus that's going on, and just kind of a loose idea of what the conditions are of that table. The future, we are looking at doing a vibe score. We're looking at adding, how fast do the drinks flow? Like, is the dealer fun or not? Like, all these different metrics, once we start adding these futures on, will combine into some through an algorithm of some sort that we're still devising into a score that, like a Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, that'll give you an idea of how this table is at this casino.
I hope you've enjoyed this little trek back through some of my past conversations on gambling, gaming, and more. For the full episodes, head to the website at jeffdoesvegas.com or jump into the archives wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And that wraps up yet another episode of the podcast. If you've got feedback on this episode of the show, or any other episode for that matter, or you've got suggestions and ideas for topics you'd like me to cover on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to me via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at JeffDoesVegas. You can also email me directly at jeff@jeffdoesvegas.com. In the meantime, thank you so much for checking out the show. Be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts so you'll know the moment new episodes are available. And don't forget to visit jeffdoesvegas.com for past episodes and show notes.